Okay, I wanted to start today off with a quick review of meiosis. For the review part of this video, you don't have to write anything, but I wanted to take a second and go through some things that we learned last week to make sure that you are ready for the quiz on Wednesday. So the first thing that you should know is that meiosis is cell division, just like mitosis. The only difference is meiosis is the cell division of sex cells, whereas mitosis was the division of body cells. So the next thing on here was, remember that mitosis has 4 stages. We had prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. With meiosis, it does prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. Instead of calling them just prophase, metaphase, we actually call them by the numbers. So the first time prophase happens, it would be prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, telophase 1, prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2, and telophase 2. Okay. Also, remember a difference is with mitosis, the cells that it produces end up with the same amount of chromosomes as the parent, whereas with meiosis, they only end up with half of the number of chromosomes as the parent. And there goes my luck with the smartboard again. Okay. Let me fix this for us. Okay. So remember again, mitosis has to do with body cells. Meiosis is sex cells, which is your egg if you're a female and sperm if you're a male. Also, remember that they are similar because they're both ways to divide cells, and the parents both start with the same number of chromosomes. The pros and cons, remember a pro for asexual reproduction is it happens a lot quicker and you don't have to have a mate with sexual reproduction. Remember, a pro is that all of the offspring are different. They're not identical, which means it's harder to wipe out the species. Also remember that a zygote is when the female sex cell, which is the egg, and the male sex cell, which is the sperm, join together. When they join together, that's a zygote. Remember that diploid means that at the end, that the cells end up with the same amount as the parent. So essentially, it doubles the chromosomes and then splits them up. So you can see from here to here, there's double. There's 2, there is 4, and so they split down the middle, so they end up with the same amount as the parent. So I think diploid is double. With haploid, you can see the parent starts with 4, and each one of the offspring end up with 2. So with haploid, I think of half. Also remember that with humans, we receive half of our chromosomes from our mom, half from our dad. So that makes us a diploid organism. So a haploid plus a haploid equals a diploid. Skipping through, also remember the word gametes. Gametes just mean sex cells, so that could be your egg or your sperm. And then finally, why does meiosis have to divide twice? So remember that if we didn't have cell division 2 times, that we would end up with too many chromosomes. And then what would happen is we would get something called Down syndrome, which is when you have too many chromosomes. And remember that that can cause lots of things to go wrong. It can cause you to have learning disabilities as well as things that are wrong with your health. And then finally, remember that this question right here is going to be on your writing assessment this week. So make sure that you understand this question. We talked about that some plants produce or reproduce sexually, which sounds weird for plants, and some reproduce asexually. If plants reproduce sexually, that means that they grew from a seed. A seed is kind of like having an egg and a sperm come together in humans. In flowers or plants, remember the pollen is kind of like the sperm, it's male. And the ovaries or the eggs inside of a plant is like the egg and a female. So when the pollen mixes together with the ovary, it creates a seed. So that is sexual reproduction. If you plant things with a seed, your plants are going to be different. Whereas if you create a plant with asexual reproduction, so maybe you cut off a stem and you replanted it and it grew another plant, that is asexual reproduction. So the plants will be identical. So again, make sure that you understand this concept and that you would be able to explain it, because again, this will be your writing assessment. So next thing on today, we're going to go ahead and start your new notes. So for your new notes today, you can see it's very, very short, only a few slides. So going back to sexual reproduction, some of you have asked me these three questions about either gender, twins, and I think that's it. So gender or twins. So the very first thing on your notes is asking you how gender is determined. So it says a baby's genetic sex is determined at the time of conception. That means when a male and a female join together, their egg and their sperm join together, that's conception. So when the baby is conceived, a chromosome from the male sperm cell is either an X or Y, and it fuses with the X chromosome in the egg cell, which determines if you're male or female. So let me kind of explain what this means in plain English. So when you have a male and a female creating a baby, the male gives his chromosomes, the female gives her chromosomes. The way the male gives his chromosomes is through his sperm. So remember with meiosis, they're creating 4 sperm cells. Each one is different, because with meiosis, all the cells are different. So what's going to happen is, of those 4 sperm cells, only one of them is going to be the one that meets the egg first. Whichever one swims to the egg and gets there first is how you are created. So essentially, if a different sperm reached an egg first, then you would be a different person. You could be, if you're a boy, you could be a girl if a different sperm would have reached the egg first. Or if you're a girl, you could be a boy if a different sperm would have reached the egg first. So, each sperm again is different, and each sperm could be, or could hold, an X or a Y. The X means that you would turn out to be a girl, and then the Y would mean that you would turn out to be a boy. So the sperm determines whether you're a boy or a girl, whichever one gets there first, whichever one wins the race. Okay? And so what happens is, when you get your chromosomes, you can see right here, when you get your chromosomes, if the sperm gave the egg a Y chromosome, then this is what your chromosomes would look like. It would have a Y, and then no matter what, you're going to have an X chromosome, because the egg is always an X. It's always female. And so when you have an X and a Y together, it makes a male. Okay? And then if the sperm that reached the egg first gave an X chromosome, then you would end up with the X chromosome from the egg as well as the X chromosome from the sperm. And whenever you have 2 X chromosomes, it's a female. So again, it all goes back to which sperm got to the egg first. And then so if it gave a Y, you end up a male. If it gave an X, you end up a female. So take a second and answer number 1 on your note sheet. The next thing I wanted to talk about today is identical twins. Some of you have been asking me, so how does meiosis relate to twins, or how do twins happen? So there's 2 types of twins. You can have identical twins, where the twins look pretty much exactly alike. And then you can have what's called fraternal twins. So you can see these two ladies. They look similar, but they can, they're obviously different. You can definitely tell those two people apart. So those are fraternal twins. So, what happens to make identical twins? You can see from this diagram, it says one egg is fertilized. So you still have one sperm meeting one egg. So now you have your fertilized egg. They're meeting together. And then the fertilized egg divides into two. These two parts are separated and develop independently. And then the two babies have identical chromosomes and genes. So essentially, the way that identical twins happen is when the sperm meets the egg splits in two. So they share the same chromosomes. That's why they look identical. It's because they share the same traits, the same genetic traits. So all of this happens if the egg splits into two. So that is something that could go wrong with meiosis. It won't cause anything bad to happen, but it causes you to end up with two eggs, which turns into two babies. The way that fraternal twins happen is different. This you can see here. You can see it says two eggs were released at once and they both were fertilized. So sometimes women, they're supposed to release one egg at a time. Sometimes our bodies mess up and they could release two eggs. If that happens, then both eggs could be fertilized with sperm. So we would have two winners of the race, essentially. So one sperm would meet one egg, another sperm meets another egg. So notice their chromosomes are not going to be the same. This sperm is going to carry different chromosomes than this sperm. And this egg is going to be different from this egg. So because they're both coming from the same people, so this sperm and this sperm came from the same male, and this egg came from the same female, that's what's causing them to have similarities. Just like brothers and sisters would have similarities, but they're not going to be identical because they don't share the exact same chromosomes. Okay, so that is it for these notes. Please make sure that you have all three questions answered, and go ahead and just look at the board to see what's next.